Welcome back to KTN Bottom Line. If you're just joining us, we're discussing the current crisis in Wajir County as well as Mandera County. Let me just bring you up to speed with a number of people who have died in this recent conflict. In less than a month, 18 people, according to Red Cross statistics, have died in Wajir as well as in Mandera. Governor Ali Roba of Mandera challenged that figure. He tells us that it's much higher, especially on the Mandera side. We're going to be looking into that. And there's thousands of people currently displaced, thousands of Kenyans out of a home tonight, and probably for the next couple of weeks. Now, to continue this discussion, we just want to listen to some of the words of the people from the ground who have experienced this conflict firsthand. Take a listen.
Na hii imekuwa huzuni kwetu na sio mara ya kwanza. Hii mambo ni kama inarudia. Kila mwaka kitendo chochote kikifanyika sehemu nyingine ya Mandera kwa sababu ya ile ukabila. Kwa ile sababu ya ukabila tunanyanyaswa. Sisi katika Wajir County hatujawahi kuua hata mtu mmoja, hatujawahi maga maji ya mtu, hatujawahi kosea mtu, lakini kila mara tunadhulumiwa.
Na mimi ningependa kusema tangu mimi nimezaliwa hapa Wajir, wazazi wangu waliishi hapa Wajir kwa miaka mingi. Nimezaliwa hapa Wajir District Hospital. Mimi ni Kenyan citizen na nilikuwa najivunia kuwa Mkenya na kwangu ni hapa Wajir, lakini venye wamenionyesha wamechoma manyumba yetu, documents zangu hakuna, birth certificate, the KCP certificate yote imechomeka, uniform yangu imechomeka, sikuweza kwenda shule hata kwa wiki moja.
Ile jambo ningesema sisi hatuna shida na watu ya Mandera. Kusema kweli hatuna shida na watu ya Mandera. Na hakuna wakati tutavuka upande wa Mandera ili tuombe ama tudai ardhi ama kitu kingine. Kitu kuu ambayo mimi naanza watu wa Mandera watupatie tu amani na serikali watuongozie security. Security ndio shida sana pande.
Sasa watu wameshatoroka kutoka makwao kwa sababu ya vita ambayo imefanya watu wakufe karibu 11 juzi, wakati mwingine wiki ago imekufa watu wawili. Sasa watu wamehofia maisha yao wakakimbia wakakuja mpaka Tarbach.
All right, those are the opinions of people who have just been displaced in this recent conflict in Wajir, speaking to Ian Wafula on the ground today. Now, still on the line is Ahmed Abdullahi, the governor of Wajir County. He's joining us to give us perspective on what's going on in his county. Governor, again, thank you for joining us. You had updated us on what's been going on, but let's go to the root causes now. What to you is the root cause of this current conflict, but by extension, what's been happening between Mandera and Wajir for a number of years now?
Right. Thank you very much, John. I'd like to start by saying that the figure of 18 can't be correct because, as I told you, the number of deaths in Wajir thus far is 21. You know, since this thing began, this latest, conflict, which is span of about 2 weeks. I think the first time that my peace people and my security team started engaging with our counterparts on Mandera was the 7th of April. And, there were a couple of meetings, mostly to resolve our little, skirmishes, children maybe just from one side to the other, and things like that. But I think
to the point, Governor, what is the root cause? What is the root cause? We understand that you've been making some efforts, but what is the root cause?
On the root cause, if I may answer that, you will recall that this really preceded the county government. This is a protracted conflict, and it was by and large until sometime last year, around August last year, it was largely a Mandera conflict. It was a conflict of the Degodi and Gare in Mandera for a number of years. Of course, given that the communities live on either side, at times emotions will boil high on this side, and they'll do something like maybe what we saw yesterday in terms of burning of the houses and all that, or even blocking of the road here and there. But
all right, Governor, stay with us on the line. We'll get to more of your opinions in a moment. Governor, just stay with us on the line. I just want to bring our panel into this discussion. Hassan, the governor says that it's largely been a Mandera conflict, but sort of dancing around what the actual root cause of this conflict is, because, I mean, it's perennial. What to you is the root cause of what's been going on there?
I think usually it's not the land that fights, it's the people.
Yes.
And it's good to understand that the people who are fighting are pastoralists. With a little understanding of the definition of a border in terms of county, in terms of whether it's Mandera or Wajir. The people of in Wajir and in Mandera, we have both two communities, up to and including to Ethiopia.
Yeah.
So the two communities live side by side. So when you look at the root cause of the conflict, when you analyze the conflict in Mandera, I wouldn't wish to be misquoted to say that this conflict, you know, when a conflict is only on for the last 4 years, basically around political persuasions.
All right, political persuasions, land conflicts, that's what you'd say it is.
That is the core issue.
All right, how about you, Salah? What do you think this conflict is driven by?
I think this conflict is not driven by pasture, it's not driven by land, it's driven by, this conflict is very old. It is something like, it was 100 years, 200 years that old. It's not something that happened yesterday. Somalis have been killing each other for the last 2 centuries. And evidence is there because we can even tell the history of the wars that happened between these communities. They already know. What has changed is the motivation now. The motivation now, mainly political, driven by probably Mandera North politics, driven by probably a few other perceived injustices between the two communities. But what has happened is the weapons have changed, the available resources to fight have changed, the people who are actually funding this war are not actually living within the community in which are suffering, because most of the people who are leaders, who are probably funding, probably providing support, probably providing morale, are living in Nairobi, very, very far away from the conflict zone. Living in Nairobi, that's an interesting point. Mahdi, both the governors challenged your numbers, the Red Cross figures, with regard to how many people have died. Is there anything that perhaps you did not update, or do you think that this may be an embellishment on either side?
No, actually, the figures I gave you was as per yesterday.
Okay.
We have our medical team and the head of operation on the ground. They are still carrying out assessments, and multi-sectoral assessment is ongoing. So the figures can change by the day. So that one, I think we'll wait and see until we get this results of the assessments.
All right, just returning to the point of the existence of militias that we had discussed with Governor Ali Roba, and we'll get to him in a moment. But there's been an interesting discussion has also been going on here during the break. The existence of 2 militias fighting this war on behalf of each clan is not in doubt. And last year, my team and I went down to Mandera during the clashes that were after the elections there to cover what happened there. And what we discovered was very interesting with regard to the actual existence of militias. Just take a look at this. This video has been widely distributed to members of the Gare community. The fighters in it are part of a militia group that defends them. And in this video, which we received from confidential sources, reveals that the Degodia too have a very well-armed militia waiting in the wings. In both videos, you see many similarities. The most common weapon being AK-47 assault weapons or G3 assault rifles. The two groups, we are told by police officers on the ground, also have rocket-propelled grenade launchers and anti-tank machine guns. While not represented on the videos, both groups number in the hundreds and have strong ties to Kenya's neighbor to the north, Ethiopia. All right, that was what was on the ground, the situation on the ground as of last year, in about August. Those 2 militias, we were able to speak to representatives of these 2 militias. And now to the question. Militias like those do not operate, 1, in a vacuum, and 2, do not operate without money. Salah, I'll go to you for this one. Where is this money coming from to fund the people who are killing people in both Mandera and Wajir?
Okay, it's coming from contributions from the members of that community, and specifically from their leaders, and specifically from politicians, and specifically from people, elites who are living, working outside the northern Kenya, who don't actually feel the pain of this conflict. You could see people who are suffering. Thousands of them have been displaced. But it does not include the children and the relatives of those politicians. So what happens is they sit in hotels in Nairobi, contribute money, buy the guns, and provide them arm those kind of warrior groups.
Salah, you raise an interesting point. Ali Roba, I'll go to you on that point. The existence of militias. You said that there were no militias in Mandera that are fighting this conflict. We've just shown a clip that shows that there are. And now we're talking about funding. One of our analysts here talks about the leadership of both Mandera and Wajir funding the respective militia groups. Is this something that you agree with, Ali?
Now, Alan, first, I'm not watching the screen to be able to see what you've shown. I'm just.
Maybe I can describe it to you. It was from last year. We had the footage of 2 militia groups that were carrying AK-47s and other assault rifles and heavy artillery, really, both from the Gare and the Degodia community. What our information was at the time was that they numbered around 200, those two militia groups, and they were fighting in a conflict last year, but they are believed to still have been mobilized. Now to the question of funding, Mr. Governor, are these groups being funded by the leadership of Mandera?
Now, I want to ask you this, the militia, because talk about just acknowledge there is militia. There is nothing like organized militia in this county. As far as we know, is these pastoral communities do buy guns from across the border to protect their livestock whenever these conflicts arise.
Yes, but where do they get the funding from? I mean, an AK-47 doesn't cost 10,000 bob, and much less than that, there's not that much money going around in order for every family to pick up a gun and defend themselves. The people that we showed are well-armed, well-oiled as well.
John, one camel can get 3 AK-47. So you must first appreciate the dynamics of what you're dealing with, really get to understand exactly what happened. Where these pastoral communities have bordered with Orat border across with literally non-existence of a government for a long time.
All right.
What happens is these ammunitions do not cost as much as you think it's a black market somewhere in Nairobi or anywhere.
Okay, so it's your contention that funding for the militia groups is local.
Against pastoral communities, and you find one camel can get you 3 AK-47. So when you think in the context of organized grants, I think it's a pretty less view.
All right, your connection is a bit spotty. We're going to try and reconnect to you, but your contention then is that it is funded locally. That is your contention, that each family sells a camel or a cow and funds their own armaments. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely, absolutely. That is exactly what happened.
All right, stay with us, Governor. We'll be back after the break. We'll also be asking the same question to Ahmed Abdullahi, the Governor for Wajir County. Stay with us. This is special coverage, KTN Bottom Line Extra. We're talking about the killings right now that are going on in Wajir and Mandera. And welcome back to KTN Bottom Line Extra. We're discussing the current conflict in Wajir County as well as in Mandera County. On the line with us is Ali Roba, MP, beg your pardon, the Governor for Mandera County, as well as Ahmed Abdullahi, the Governor for Wajir County. We'll carry on the conversation with you, Governor Ahmed Abdullahi. It is Ali Roba's contention that the militia groups there are not funded from other places other than locally. What is your contention about that? Who is funding the people who are fighting in your county?
Yeah, John, our network here has gone a bit haywire and I could barely hear the governor's conversation.
Yeah.
And please, I beg that you give me time to, get to a conclusion of what I'm saying. Because you'd asked me the initial question of the whole, starting of this thing, how it got started. And I remember saying that it, by and large, started on the other side, but I think there are things that exacerbated it or increased, and these are basically, one, the general instability in the area, the porous borders, the Shabab question, political rivalry, and generally increased clan nationalism, and to some extent even social media, because there's a lot of hate speech on social media between these two communities if you just go to Facebook and the like.
All right,
and
Governor.
why I say it's not a Wajir problem is because there is no political duel between the Garri and the Dogodia in Wajir. On the coming of devolution, we anticipated there'll be problems between communities, and that's why in Wajir it took us a whole year, of civic education to convince the clans that we don't want a winner-take-it-all politics, given the patriarchal nature of the Somali community. And we ended up with lineups that were competing on the basis of party, but that were inclusive, so that regardless of whoever came in, the governor, the senator, and the deputy governor were from the from the three largest communities.
All right, we now have to move very. Unfortunately, we're running out of time, Governor. We now have to move very quickly. And I'll ask you just briefly to tell me about the funding of the people who are fighting on the ground before we move to solutions. What do you think can help in resolving this crisis?
I think the question of funding is not much of an issue, if you ask me. Why? Because, again, of the nature of the settlements. The settlements are such that they usually belong to a particular clan, and then they belong to a particular sub-clan, and sometimes even particular sub-clan because of the coalescing around that patriarchal lineage. So when a community feels that, they are under threat for self-protection, they buy guns, and these things can be afforded by even the pastoralist nomads because they sell the animals to actually, and they've done this for a very long time.
All right.
What is complicating it now is the nature of the guns being used. There are also issues of the TFG ex-combatant that needs to be addressed because we are told, and this is something that needs to be clarified, that there were a lot of Kenyan youth from this side of the country that were recruited for TFG as combatants. A lot of them have come back and have actually come back with those weaponry. We need to account for those people. We need to ask those who are recruiting these people, whether they know where they are, from which clans, from which counties, and then there's the issue of Shabab. There are people who joined Shabab and came back, and this is why we're also having, in addition to the clan conflict issue, attacks every so often, even at...
All right, let me switch over now to your counterpart in Mandera. Governor, I beg your pardon, let me switch over to your counterpart in Mandera. Mr. Robert, solutions now. But before we go there, the transitional federal government training of troops that took place in Kenya, in some parts of Isiolo, with young men from both Mandera and Wajir counties, is something that the governor contends is exacerbating this conflict because these people were trained to fight. Before we move to solutions, please, I'd like to hear your response about that specifically.
Well, Alan, thank you very much. First and foremost, I would like to get to respond to the governor's statement in the context of associating in different differences in Mandera to political issues. Before the general election, there was conflict gathered in Wajir, and the leadership of one of the constituents was being held by the Wajir. And as such, that statement that the governor was making, trying to insinuate that it has something to do with political issues, organizations, is absolutely inapplicable in this scenario. What happens is there are organizations of communities within the county. And I would like him to respond to one question. If his government is at all inclusive, how many guerrillas has he recruited because they live in India? Yet we have hundreds of the Wajir community members working in Mandera County government in the aspect of all inclusive and static executive chief.
Working in the government, but not part of the leadership. I mean, the constellation of the leadership in Mandera County, from top to bottom, including yourself, is Gare, and that seems to be a problem. Maybe you can also respond in terms of the political leadership. That is a fair point, and I'll ask it to him. But in terms of the political leadership, should this have been a route that you took to have a negotiated democracy down in Mandera so that both communities, both in minority and in majority, can have a slice of the cake, so to speak?
As I speak to you, both communities have actually extensive representation in counties. And I can say the same for Wajir County, where the Gara community were locked out, and we've been in discussion completely, not even an office sweeper. If inclusiveness applies, then the governor will be able to elaborate on that.
All right, very quickly, can you give me your solution to what's going on right now? Unfortunately, Governor, we're running out of time, so I'll need your solution very quickly. What do you think is the one thing that we can do to resolve what's going on right now, end the killing, and bring people together down there?
What is most critical, first and foremost, is to remove the delusional thought about these interclan issues having anything to do with safety, and to acknowledge the fact that these pastoral communities have both armed themselves to the teeth, accept this reality, and as leaders engage as sincerely, as honestly as possible in order for us to deal with the problem at hand.
All right. Thank you very much, Governor Ali Robert. Thank you very much for joining us. This is a conversation that we will try to continue in coming days, and we will definitely be giving you a call to continue giving us your opinions about how this can end. Now, unfortunately, we're running out of time. I know we didn't speak much, but let's talk about solutions. Very quickly, Salah, how do we resolve what's going on currently and for posterity?
I think the first thing is Somalia have a lot of problems, and the problems are marginalization. There are no roads, there are no facilities, there are no schools in some places. Schools have been performing so dismally that we send very few people to university. Another day, one university graduate was killed in these useless wars. So I think we should have to be very honest about it. And from what I am hearing from the governors and from the politicians, they are not honest. They are not telling us exactly what is happening in the region.
All right.
And we don't need this war. So what do we do? The government should come in, and at least we've been having this war for the last 7 years. Who has been arrested? Was there any person who was taken to court? Nobody has been taken to court. Can it be that 95 people were killed and no one murderer has actually been prosecuted?
I'll stop you there. Mahdi, your thoughts? Finally, from a humanitarian perspective, how do we resolve this? From the humanitarian
perspective, I think if you look at the general situation in northeastern, is an arid and semi-arid area. This is enough to give those communities thinking on how they can survive and build up their livelihoods. The killings is an extra burden on them. So what is needed is dialogue and sincere dialogue between those communities to resolve, because the home problem needs a home solution.
Home solution.
Yes.
Very good. How about you, Hassan? How do we resolve this so that going forward we don't have to hear about these kinds of killings again in that part of the country?
I think the buck stops at the leadership. That's when we look at the existence of this conflict. I'm 40 years. Mm-hmm. And when we perceive that there has been an existing conflict between these two communities, and I've lived in Mandera for close to all those years, apart from the last 3-4 years, there has never been such heinous
So what is your solution?
My solution is that these people can live together. One of the key issues I really want us to do is we need to do a honest discussion. You know, we need inclusivity. When I talk about inclusivity, I am not talking about Mandera. You know, when many people tend to that there has not been political.
The entire region.
The entire region. When you look at Wajir, I think some of the whatever I read is that not even a sweeper has been included in the county government as staff from the Gara community. They have one MCA. They live in the town. And there has been a systematic, in the two sides, I think there is a political solution.
Just try and crystallize it for us in one sentence, because we don't have much time, but I need to put you under pressure to do this. One sentence. What is your solution?
I think we need to give the community elders opportunity. We need to involve the religious community. We also need the political provisional administration to take serious action against. You know, they have completely abdicated their responsibility as the custodian of peace in the region. And my advice would have been to even take county commissioners that come from that region, where you cannot easily manipulate them. You know, we had problems in Northeastern Province hosting Mohammed Salah the former
All right.
PC, was a solution.
Unfortunately, I'm going to have to stop you there. That's part of your solution. I know you have a rebuttal. Unfortunately, we can't carry it. We've got Ahmed Abdullahi on the line. Ahmed, Governor for Wajir, please give us in one sentence. I know it's difficult to do so because there's been so much that's going on. What is your solution to what's going on currently in your county? Very quickly, sir.
Right. I think the bit of the employment in Wajir, you know, those are things that can be verified. It's not true what they said. We can verify that. And now on the solutions very quickly, and I think it's not fair, you know, to do it in one sentence.
Unfortunately, we don't have the time to, so I'm going to have to make you do that.
We need the authority of government on the ground. 12 people have been killed in Wajir 2 days ago. Up to now, there is no record in the OB, occurrence book. No one has been asked any question. No eyewitness has been questioned. Of course, political inclusivity has been talked about. Resources for the police, you know, and the AP, you know, on the ground here, in terms of vehicles, in terms of equipment, just the head count, as I said, and generally this porous border also needs to be dealt with in terms of more surveillance, in terms of you know, stopping all this sugar trafficking, which probably also carries a lot of other unexpected things. I think those are some of the solutions, but the communities also have to come together. We will continue with the work of the peace elders. We'll continue with the peace negotiation. Also, when an agreement is put in writing and people are made to sign for it, there has to be the will of government to see to it that whatever has been agreed is implemented. There was a comprehensive peace agreement that was done last year. Have we really followed up to see who did what afterward? And were the, you know, whatever was agreed as punishment for whoever will break that agreement, has it really been enforced? I think those are some of the things, you know, we need to be
unfortunately, I'm going to have to stop you there. We will continue this discussion, though. Governor for Wajir, Ahmed Abdullahi, thank you very much for joining us from Wajir, as well as your counterpart in Mandera, Ali Robert. Thank you very much for joining us. To our panelists, Saleh, as well as Mahdi and Hassan, thank you very much for joining us. Like I said, we're going to continue this discussion going forward until there is a resolution. Now, when 51 years ago Kenya gained internal self-rule, it wasn't just an implied responsibility that the government and every other Kenyan had and has a responsibility to each other in defending the well-being of each person in Kenya. The clashes in Wajir, Mandera, Moyale, Marsabit or Turkana happen often without the intervention of the public and the media in raising their voices about the slaughter of fellow Kenyans. The bottom line here is that we all bear a shared responsibility in speaking out against these needless deaths, whether they happen in regions far away from us or in our own backyards. This conversation may have been about the Wajir-Mandera clashes, but it has a bearing on the wider discussion that will take place on your screens very shortly. Checkpoint is back this week, and Yvonne Okwara will be discussing the state of the nation on this 51st Madaraka Day, so stay tuned to KTN and watch. Thank you for joining us. I'm John Allen Namu, and this has been Bottom Line Extra.